Hello, class. Yes, come on in. Please have a seat. Please sit in the front if you can. If this is, of course, a lecture class, so please have a seat. Mingle amongst yourselves as we get set up here. This is, of course, a one-on-one course, so it's one of your core classes. Definitely not something that it's required for every major, so you're definitely not going to be seeing people that you're familiar with all the time. So please, there are of course some refreshments if you'd like. I do like to bring these to the first day of classes, tend to be a bit rough for people, so please have, enjoy it. Yes, so is everybody here? Yes, okay, well, if that's the case, then let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Okay, so welcome to How to Start a Cult 101. I am Professor Basil, and I'm here to help you with your cult-like dreams. Now, like I said before, this is, of course, a 101 course. There are plenty of courses in the future. However, unless you are within sort of cultology, you're not going to be taking one of these courses. So enjoy the philosophical and, very direct steps as to how to start a cult within this course. Yes? Okay. So I like to start my classes, particularly, the first day of class, I like to start with a brief overview of cults, how to start them, and the general arc that we're going to be going on within this, this semester. If you feel uncomfortable with this topic, if you have experienced being in a cult of some kind, I do feel for you, but unfortunately, you must suck it up because you are in this class and it's a core class, so you must be able to know how to do it. And as everybody knows, the cycle of abuse is, of course, a cycle. So you must be the person to then perform the abuse yourself. So, I didn't create this, it's just sort of how it is. So we're going to go through many things today, but very briefly, okay? So we're going to start with, why would you want to start a cult, right? Because if the reasons aren't apparent, it might be more apparent to you once I give you some reasons. I'm going to talk about who I am. I'm sure many of you have not heard of my work, and it's totally fine if you haven't, because I am absolutely brilliant at what I do. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the first steps in starting a cult. Then we're going to discuss your messaging. What kind of messages do you want to actually send to people to help grow the cult? Then we want to talk about your goals, right? So this will be once the cult is established, what goals does the cult have? And that's going to largely revolve around you or whoever is the head of the cult, should you create a cult that you are not the head of, though that is incredibly rare. And then we are going to discuss the eventual downfall of the cult and the fleeing, right, and the hiding. Yes, so those are the steps that we're going to talk about today, and then we're going to cover all of that in greater detail in the future and subsequent classes, okay? Alrighty. So, any questions so far, class? Yes, Rebecca? Yes, of course you can start a cult. So just because you are a minority of some kind does not necessarily mean that you are exempt from being able to start a cult. Cults in general come from a very long line of diverse, it has a very diverse history, is what I'm trying to say. And it's incredibly popular amongst most, if not all kinds of people. So do not feel like you are out of your place or out of your depth. All you need is a little bit of luck and a lot of charisma. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the why. Why do you want to start a cult, right? You're all here. Part of you, some of you are here because it's a necessity, but some of you are here because you're genuinely interested in this sort of thing, right? So why would you want to start a cult to begin with? Well, one of the main reasons someone might start a cult is power, right? To exert power over another person, to control another person, is one of the most thrilling things on the planet. And to be alive, some might say, is to be powerful. So in some ways, having a cult is a lifelong dream for a lot of people. Yes, and some people choose to succumb to their capitalistic tendencies and exploit people for labor. Others tend to emotionally manipulate, right, or to take actual control of their everyday life in a much more direct approach. And some is familial, and whatever the case is, having power over someone, is absolutely terrible and horrible, but it also makes you feel alive. And so that's one of the reasons why you might do it. You might also, you might do it for control, but you might do it because you need someone to talk to. You might feel like you are an other, right? You are someone who doesn't, no one really understands you, right? And so you might create a cult to give yourself a community that you have absolutely enthralled around you, and then that makes you feel good inside. And you know what? I mean, it's so what if you've forgiven, you've given up on therapy just to do such a thing, right? I mean, having people who adore you in a way that is completely, some might say, unethical. It's great. It's wonderful. So that is the why. Now, who am I, Professor Basil? Yes, Professor Basil. I am someone who has been in and created over 20 cults. That's right, 20 cults. Now, these 20 cults, they are, some have grown very big, some have not taken off the ground very much, but I am an active member in 3 of them. Right, so in all 3, I am, of course, the head. However, I have pseudonyms for each cult, simply because you don't want to, cult mingling is a bit iffy, and some people are very jealous. So you might, some people might end up being a little bit, clingy, and you don't really want that in a cult leader. I'm the cult leader, but you don't want that in cult followers to the cult leader. And aside from my, vast experience in the topic, I, of course, have been loving being a cult leader. I mean, there's nothing like it. And, as I said in the why section, it is, it presents a lot of challenges. It's, it's not for the faint of heart. It does provide you with, reasons to stay up at night, wondering if you are in fact an awful person. But at the end of the day, it's all worth it, because you have utter control over people, and that there's a thrill to that nothing can come close to. And of course, I've had many commercial successes. When you have cults, what ends up happening is that you can really lean on capitalism to sell things to your cult followers, right? They adore you, you control them, and so you can just have them buy whatever product, right? So it ends up being a very wonderfully hand-in-hand relationship, yes? So make sure to write that down, by the way. Capitalistic tendencies do go very well with cults, because you can lend each other you can, the strength of each thing can really go hand in hand with each other. So that is who I am. So we are going to move on to the first steps. Okay, so you are wanting to start a cult, but you are someone who, unfortunately, do not have. You don't have sort of an inkling as to where you might start, right? You're just you're a college student right here. You're in uni, and you don't know where to start. Here's what I'll tell you. First of all, how you're going to start will depend upon your successes outside of your cult. So if you are internet famous of some kind, you're B, C, D-list celebrity, that gives you a leg up. You also, if you are a nepo baby of some kind, if you have famous parents, that also gives you a slight leg up because you are able to access a lot more people because there's a lot more eyes on you. Okay? But one of the main things that you need is Riz. That's right, Riz. Bet you didn't expect me to say that. Yes, I am definitely, as a professor, I try to keep up with the younger people's terms. Mind you, I do think that is, I haven't heard people say it in a bit, but certainly it's not, I'm using it correctly. But Riz, you must have Riz, charisma. No one wants a cult leader that is not charismatic, right? And charisma comes in many forms, right? If you are very attractive, especially if you're conventionally attractive, then it will go a long way for you to create a cult. But you must be conniving, you must be cunning, right? Your intelligence must be off the charts to create a cult, because slight addendum, we will discuss this in the future, but by intelligence, by cunning and conniving, I do mean you must be more cunning and conniving than your cult followers. Yes? So if you plan on mainly approaching and grabbing people who tend to be slightly more uneducated or more ignorant, then you don't necessarily need to be incredibly smart. You just need to be able to outmaneuver them, right? Be aware of the things that they are not aware of and able to manipulate information to get them to form a worldview to prop you up. Yes. Aside from being charismatic, you must of course have friend groups, right? A lot of cults start with friend groups, and if you don't want to be a cult follower, then you must remember to not have any friends. Having friends is sort of a devilish prospect, because you're putting a lot of trust in another person, and you really shouldn't be doing that, because why are you trusting someone who's not yourself? So especially if you can't control them, that's crazy. So what you're going to have to do here is you're going to have to have these friend groups where you are the higher up person. Yes, you are the connector of the friend group. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to connect these friend groups together. So when you connect each friend group, what ends up happening is you're creating a larger network of people that only know each other very tangentially, but are all connected to you. Okay? So with that, we also want to talk about the sort of the dirty little secret that it comes with being a cult leader and starting a cult. The first steps is you must be gathering information, gathering dirt. So part of the reason why you are going to be bringing all of these groups together is that you, as the central person, should have dirt or blackmail, if you want to call it that, on each person that is directly connected to you. Why? That's because once you try and convert a friend to a cult follower, it's going to be a bit difficult if they have seen your flaws. So you must be prepared to sort of strangle them with, metaphorically speaking, with information about their life that they do not want out, right? Or with threats potentially. Of course, on this is all theoretical, of course. So this is not advice, but anyway. So those are the first steps that you're going to want to take. Okay. Now, once you have those first steps, you are going to have to decide your messaging. So you are, you've hit your stride, you've connected your friend groups, you are sort of the center within a very small, burgeoning community of cult followers. Now, you are starting to get some power, you are starting to get some influence, and people are starting to take note of you. What then do you want to do with such power, right? Because having power isn't interesting if you don't exert it in some capacity. So you want to grow your followers, and you want to do this by appealing to those who are marginalized, or most importantly, those who feel marginalized. They don't have to actually be marginalized, right? If someone is in a very privileged position, but they feel like they're being targeted, like say, a millionaire that feels like they are, they're suffering because, people just don't like them because they're not being paid enough. Well, that millionaire is very susceptible to being a cult follower. And that's simply because they find a safe haven within your cult. So that is just an example, but you want to think of that kind of messaging when you are figuring out, your cult roots. We also want to discuss the messaging when it comes to appearances, right? So whenever you are around, you need to be on your best behavior during this very critical moment in your cult. You want to be standing up for the little guy, as they say. You want to be helping people, being kind, only on the surface level, yes? You don't want to actually be solving anything. You want to just surface level helping people. You also want to be the person who is the solution, right? You're promising a solution despite the fact that there might be no solution, okay? So that is your messaging. So now that you have that, now that you have your messaging, you've done your first steps, you are now a fully fledged cult. People are talking about you. There's perhaps even, a documentary or two about you, or a docu-series, or a book about or all of the above. Whatever the case is, you are now fully established. So what do you do if you're fully established? What goals do you have? Well, first goal that seems to be on people's minds when you're in a cult is political influence. How do you think I got the job that I have right now, speaking in front of you? It's because I am a cult leader. And so I'm able to exert political influence to put me into a position like this one, despite the fact that I am a complete fraud who, quite frankly, has never taught anything in their life and shouldn't be teaching anybody anything. But, as you know, that's not the case. I am brilliant. So, political influence, especially if you, in countries where there's a lot of, corruption, cults are massively able to influence political parties. Also, one of the things is wealth hoarding. So, one of the things that I think I have found very, very wonderful at being a cult leader is that people shower you with money, and you end up being in charge of people's well-being, of people's wealth and of their fortunes, and you can simply take it all, and no one's going to say no because they love you. Right? They love this idea of you, and so you're going to take it all and spend it and have a good time. They're going to wallow in misery while not really realising that they're wallowing in misery. It's honestly, best case scenario for yourself. Not so great for them, but, you don't really care about them. And of course, one of the goals of a cult is, of course, the fun vibes. You want to be able to pass the vibe check of a lot of places. You also want to, when you meet people, you want to be able to pass the vibe check. And you also want to, like I said, you must have charisma. Okay. So, you are a cult. You've been around for a while. Now people are starting to discuss the abusive natures of the cult leader, who is you. And perhaps they are discussing how, you should be, jailed. You should be tried for many, criminal activities that you performed or performed under you, whatever the case is. And, I have no experience in this whatsoever. Absolutely not. But, if, say, you are in some form of legal trouble, you do not fret. Every cult runs into these things. It's an inevitability, because people, at the end of the day, they are jealous of your own charisma and the fact that you're able to create a cult when they couldn't. So they just want what you have. So do not take it as a personal offense, right? It's a more general offense. They're not, I'm upset with you. They're upset with the idea of a cult. And you were never going to convert people who do not like cults to begin with. No. So what you want to do when you eventually come to a place where people are criticizing you is you want to appear remorseful and you want to make it believable. You want to be remorseful, but you also do not want to be perfect. You want to yell, scream, you want to act rashly in some capacity because you want people to think that you are crashing out. If they believe that, then they think that they're getting to you. And if they think that they're getting to you, that they're not really looking under the surface. So you also want to never fully address it, right? You want to discuss it in vague terms. You want to discuss, people are saying things and it's very horrible. It's making me feel bad. That sort of stuff. You do not want to discuss the very minute details because, let's face it, the cult is bad for people who are in it, but it's very good for you and you want it to stay that way. So you do not want to address it. You also want to start thinking about moving, right? The cult is eventually going to dissolve. That is the fate of every cult. But what is going to come out, what's going to come out of it is you have funds now. You're able to move. You're able to take yourself and your belongings and go somewhere much more quiet, much more serene, and make sure that they can't find you. And what you want to do is be aware of the locations of other people who are in a similar position. There are, of course, Facebook groups for cult leaders. There are support groups of cult leaders. There are, I believe there is, of course, an AA specifically designed for cult leaders as well, because, a lot of cult leaders end up being alcoholics, but whatever the case is, wherever you find that community of cult leaders, you can go there and then start over. But one of the things is when you are doing this, when that happens, you're going to have to hide. And what that means is you're going to have no socials, no social media, nothing. And that is going to be difficult in this day and age, but because of your wealth that you've, accrued due to being in a cult, you are, you don't need to work anymore, right? You are, you can spend your times with, other horrible, disgusting people and feel good about yourself because you became a horrible and disgusting person, by yourself. You did not need to, you did not need anyone else's help, aside from the help of myself telling you how to do it. So with that is going to be everything that I have for you today. That is, that's everything that we're going to discuss within the coming weeks in much greater detail. Every class is going to be, each, a step. Some weeks are going to be, it'll be hard to discuss just one topic in 1 week. So we might stretch it out over 2 weeks or 3. But once we get to the end, I am confident that each one of you will be able to start a cult if they wanted. And, if anybody wants help just to get started right away, if you are an eager student, please, I have office hours. You are able to come and talk to me about it. And if anyone is interested in my cult, any of the cults that I'm currently a leader of, please come talk to me. I can get you set up. And we take very good care of people who are in my cult. It's honestly, it's a very great deal for you. And if you do end up joining my cult, what ends up happening is that you will, of course, pass this class with flying colours. It's just one of the many perks of being in my cult. So with that, I'm going to have to bid you adieu because I do have another course in, what do I have? Oh, I don't have a course, actually. I have lunch. So I need to go have lunch. And you all need to be off. Do whatever you do at uni. All right? Well, class, I hope you have a wonderful day. And I will see you here next week. All right, then. Bye-bye.